My name is Ron Suggs, and today on Let's Talk About It, we're going to be talking about a subject that is near and dear to my heart, building high-performing teams. We have two experts today. We have Eric Hernandez and Terry Curry. Welcome, Eric. Welcome, Terry. Eric, do me a favor, do the audience a favor. Why don't you just give us a little bit of your background, and then, Terry, you can give us a little bit of your background as well. Why don't you start first, Eric?
Yes, thanks, Ron. Well, my background, I have around 20 years plus of experience I would say, in the industry, mostly in the manufacturing space. I've done roles from engineering to procurement, program management, and recently, the last couple of years, I've been leading a team in the operations side. I would say it's about 2,000 employees, several manufacturing factories across the Americas, and happy to be here with you guys sharing this moment. Thank you.
Man, that's a great background. So as we begin to discuss this, you've seen it all as it relates to building high-performance teams. Terry, can you kind of walk us through your background real quick?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. And I first of all, I'm real excited to be here talking with you gentlemen. But very similar, I have 25 plus years experience in multiple industries, leading teams. And I also have an engineering background. I'm actually an electrical engineer, a little bit different from Eric. But that tells me a little bit something because we have logical minds, right? Well, that experience in leading teams has kind of led me to where I am right now, running my own company, helping Fortune 500 companies take their business to the next level.
Great background. And as you know, my background, I've had about 30 years of experience in leadership across a number of industries, sales, marketing, and manufacturing and operations. So it's great to be here with you guys and talking about something that I believe is a huge thing, and that is high-performing teams. How do you build them? What are they about? And how do you sustain that type of high performance over time? So, Terry, I'll just start with you. And again, this is going to be a discussion. And Eric, feel free to jump in whenever you have a point to make. And all of us will have a discussion around this because, again, let's talk about it. So we'll do that as a group. So, Terry, tell me, first of all, what high-performance teams mean to you and how do you build them?
Very good. That's a good question, Ron. When I talk to a lot of leaders in different businesses and different industries, there's some common themes that I see from those that are kind of leading the industry. Those best in class leaders are those that surround themselves with the expert. Like we always say, you don't have to be the expert, you just have to know the expert. And when it comes to a high performing team, it depends on your definition. So I always look at the definition of best in class businesses and how they perform, how they view a high performing team. But a high performing team, is a group of individuals that specialize in getting the best out of each other and out of themselves. They have a focused approach on where they're going, and then they have a process on how they're going to get there. They're about continuous learning. They value others' opinions. They're very open and have clear communications with others to make sure that they can pull the best out of people. Those high performing leaders that help put together these high performing teams understand that, it's not about everything that you know by yourself, but it's about how you pull out the best in others around you, how to motivate people, what motivates individuals. So to me, it's about you attracting those individuals to your team that are going to make you high performing with high performing individuals. Is about how you engage those individuals, and is how you retain that talent also. If you have a high performing team where everyone gets to a certain level and then leaves, then what's the value in that if you have to start all over again?
Right. So you're saying it's about recruiting, retaining, and just building a culture, a learning culture. Those are the three things that you would think that would at least start the building process.
Absolutely.
Okay. Eric, with your vast number of experience and leadership across the Americas, kind of give us your vision or your thought around high-performing teams.
Yes, Ron, and in agreement with Terry with most of what he said, I do compliment a few areas that I feel are very critical. I think number one, you have to be comfortable building a team that's going to be diverse, diverse backgrounds, diverse ways of thinking,
Mhm.
and just really having an openness to that type of environment with a team. Besides that, I think there are a few other areas that are critical. Everyone's going to have a role in the team. Not everyone's going to be versatile in many of the skills or whatever you're looking for to achieve as an objective. So you need to make sure that each role of that team member is well defined, well understood, and they embrace it. And I think that's an important aspect. You're not going to have a LeBron James in every single team. So you got to make sure you surround that team with the right talent for the roles that they have to perform. And I think the third thing that I would add to that is you have to keep the high motivation type of culture and environment. And in order for you to achieve that recognition, building the team up, and really celebrating successes as you move the needle in whatever objectives you have as a group, it's going to be very key for you to be able to keep that team focused, but also motivated to continue to strive for success.
So motivation is a key. And, some people say that motivation comes from within, and some people say that a leader is responsible for motivating. What do you think about that?
That's a good point. I think that certainly I'm in the camp of believing motivation comes within. I think there's an aspect of a drive that each of the individual has. I think to the contrary, I think that the leader's job is to find that aspect of that particular area that motivates the individual, and hopefully either help them realize it,
Mhm.
or be able to guide them towards that aspect of motivation that could drive that individual. So there's both play a big role in here. Obviously, as a self driven person, you're going to have your own ways of getting motivated, but the leader can help enable that environment to find that motivation along the way.
Okay, Terry, that's a great answer, by the way. And so when I think about all of the things that we do as leaders to build teams, it's not easy to do. They work in a way that we have people with different egos, different places in their career, different experience levels, and you're trying to bring all of that together and put people in a position to win. So those things are important, in my opinion. So Terry, when you're dealing with folks that are high performing, and there's some egos that are there, how do you manage through that part of it?
That's a very good point. I'm a firm believer. I'm a humble leader.
Okay.
Humility takes you a long way. Early on in my career, I had a mentor that told me, "Hey, listen, you might have a lot of great ideas, but sometimes for you to kind of get the favor of those that you report to, make your ideas into their ideas." And
Mhm.
sometimes it's a way of just how you propose an idea, or how you propose a change that needs to happen. And sometimes it's all about, you don't have to worry about the credit, but because when you do something well and there's good results from it, people know who to give the credit to. So if you're not worried about that and you can humble yourself, that's going to put you in a position to not only be a high performing individual of a team, but you're going to attract others that are more like you. Um,
Okay.
that being the case, I'm gonna throw a question kind of back at you too. I've seen individuals that think that they always have to recruit those team members that have the skill sets that they need. What do you see as an opportunity in building skill sets into high potential people? So maybe your definition of a high potential person isn't someone that already has those skill sets, but has the potential for those skill sets.
That's a good question. You want to take that, Eric, or you want me to take it?
Go for it, and I'll chime in for sure.
Okay, so for me, I think that if you have a willing participant, someone who is willing to learn, who have the desire to learn, and who really have a desire to be good at what they do, right? So you can teach individuals like that. You can put them in a position because it's in them. They really, really want to be the best they can possibly be. And I think that that's a good building block to start from. I think when it becomes a problem is if all of the motivation comes from the leader. If that's the case, if there's not a sense of self-motivation within that person, then it's going to be a tough road. And so, because everything we understand rises and falls on leaders, but when you're building a team, everyone has a responsibility. So individuals that have the capacity to learn, who want to learn, to me, that's the foundation of building a high-performing individual, which ultimately produces a high-performing team.
I agree with Ron, and I actually, going back to a comment that Terry made at the beginning, I think it's really important to as a leader understand that you're not going to know all the answers, that you have to learn from your team members, especially when you're leading a team. I think it's important to realize and humble yourself that you're definitely not going to have every single answer that they expect to have, and you have to find ways to either, even if you do know the answer, to Terry's point, I think you have to find ways to get them there, but not necessarily give them what the solution is. I think you can guide them to it. If you do know the answer, you guide them towards the answer without giving it to them. And I think you also, to your point, Ron, I think you also have to be careful not to always be the factor for motivating. You have to understand where to guide that team member or the group itself to find their own motivation around the task at hand.
Good deal. So let me ask this right here. Let's talk about vision. And creating the right vision starts the process. So what are some of the things, Eric, that you do to create the right vision, and how do you push that throughout the organization, or at least the team?
It's a great question, and I think this is a very important aspect of leading a team. I'm going to start with this, and then I'm going to chime in with an example as well. I think it's worthwhile in this particular question. One, having a vision is one of the most critical aspects for you when you're leading a team, leading an organization. If you don't have a clear vision, then your team eventually will get lost in the task-saturated daily activities that most of us can easily fall into. So you got to be very aware of what is the long-term vision. And yes, there will be always priority setting activities that forces you to level set the team or the team objectives. There's always going to be something that maybe you don't plan for. But this is why the vision is important, because the vision will continue to be clear for everybody that that's where we're heading. And yeah, you might stumble along the way, you might take a few turns. However, the group understands this is where we're heading. And I'm going to use an example here. In the company that I work for, we set for many in manufacturing will relate to this. This is a very critical objective of having zero accidents. And we talk about things like this usually in manufacturing as a wish, as an ideal state. And I gave that to our group as an actual objective for one of our years here in the past. And one of the things that I realized, it wasn't just stating we're going to get to zero accidents, we're going to have all of our employees safe. I think those are great things to say, but how do we get the team to realize that it's possible? And one of the I would say unique things that I found as we went through this journey was really putting together a solid, after developing that vision, putting together a solid roadmap of how we were going to get there. And we understood that most of this, especially when it comes to the safety of employees, it's going to be around behaviors. It's going to be about standards and protocols that we can be more predictive around the things we wanted to do. So going back to establishing a vision, the vision was set. We wanted to get to zero. However, we needed to also put together the how we were going to get there. And by us putting together the right program with the right foundational aspect around cultural views around safety, the motivation of how do we get to the employee at the shop floor and make sure that they understand their role within this vision that we have, and really getting to the level that we need to get at all levels of the organization to make sure everybody understood that that's where we're heading, was key in driving this achievement. And we actually did achieve. We actually achieved 1+ years without an accident,
Wow.
and it was something that
That's a huge
years ago
accomplishment.
we thought it was going to be, far-fetched or an ideal state, and we actually lived it. So I think it's very possible, but having that vision was very key.
Okay. Terry, you've built an organization. You've built a high-performing organization. I've been around you for a number of years. So kind of walk us through starting a company, because that's different than being in a company that's been established already. So you're starting a company and you're thinking about a vision. How do you lay that out? And then how do you communicate that to folks in your organization that are brand new, or that you're bringing them in to start something that you believe can be world class?
Right, kind of piggybacking off of what Eric said about how important it is to build a vision, just to add to that a little bit, is also very important that you establish a vision that is closer towards that ideal state. So for instance, even when we work some of our clients and we're building vision statements and we're talking about where they're going to be in their future state, are you talking about the next 3 to 6 months? You talking about the next 3 to 6 years? Or are you talking about 10 years out? One problem that I've seen and that I try to establish with my team is that I don't want us to be complacent with early success. And what that means is, you're hungry until you achieve some success, and then you take your foot off the accelerator a little bit. I know one thing we always say, and I've heard you say this before, Eric, every day in Africa, a zebra wakes up and knows it must outrun the fastest lion or will be eaten, and every day in Africa, a lion wakes up and it knows it must outrun the slowest zebra. But it doesn't matter if you're a lion or a zebra. When you wake up, you better be running. And that is so true in every industry. I mean, if you think about it, in today's times, what's going on right now, there are businesses that were brand new to the industry 15 years ago that don't exist today. And a lot of it is because they got complacent. So, when you think about vision, part of my vision has to be continuous improvement. I need to make sure that I'm always striving to do better tomorrow than I'm doing today. Even if it's early success, there's someone else that's working on building off the success that you have. So when I'm building the vision of my team, we're always looking at best in class, and we're looking at where is best in class going? What innovations are going to take us there? What can I do different? I set aside 2 hours a week where I do some type of new evaluation of my own talents, where I'm trying to learn something new, whether it's a new app, whether it's me getting better with social media, whether it's me learning how to apply like the Internet of Things to things that I do on a day-to-day basis. How do I make it better? It's never at its best where it is today, because something's going to happen to make it better. So when you're building a vision and I'm trying to motivate my team, I try to take two steps ahead of where they think they're going to help them always strive towards that next level.
That's a lot. That's a lot. I think it's important that we do that. There's a old saying that says that write the vision and make it plain, right? So you write that vision and you make it plain and you make it simple, right? So I think, Eric, you mentioned this earlier, that you can't make this vision too complicated, where so you have a mission, then you have a vision statement, right? And then you start to really dial it in. What does that mean to you as an individual? So even though you have different departments, so I know you run multiple plants and different functions within the organization, and I have too from an experience standpoint, but each one of those tactics means something different to the other or to the other team. So you have to give them that vision that everyone needs to follow, but within that mission statement, these are the things that are applicable to you that feed the overall mission for the organization. And I think that has to be laid out. And then it has to be a situation where each individual understands what it takes to fulfill that. So there's a training and a development piece that goes into that. And Terry, you said something earlier, and I think it's very important, that as a leader, we can't stop learning. we have to continue to have a mentality that if I'm going to create a learning organization, then I have to be a learner as well. I have to always do some things to add to my toolbox. And more importantly, I think you said this too, I think, Eric, you may have mentioned it, looking at it from an industry standpoint. So if I just look at my task or my organization within the four walls that it encapsulates, then my ideas will just circulate around those walls. But if I go outside, and you hear this statement, go outside the box, but if I have an industry approach and I start to look at competition as anyone who has any ideas, then I'm going to go beyond what's in my walls, four walls, and I'm going to bring some things inside. So instead of regurgitating just different ideas with different names within these four walls, I'm taking an industry approach so that I can understand what's going on around me and I can transform the organization that I'm leading. So I think those things are important. I think we're all saying the same thing and we're getting to the same place. We just have different roads that we're going. And I tell you what, I think our audience is really going to learn from the different backgrounds that we have. So I'm excited about the opportunity to talk about this. Let me just ask you guys both a question. What happens when your vision is something changed? Obviously, right now we have COVID, right? What we're thinking that things should be and the vision that we've laid out, there's sometimes things that a monkey wrench jumps in the program. So how do you adjust your vision and your mission based on that?
Well, I think Ron, if I can take that first, I think it's as a leader, you have to be able to realize that you have to adapt. You have to adapt to external factors that are out of your control, and not think that just because your vision is sound, maybe you have a very good mission plan to achieve the vision. Doesn't mean that things can change, and that's a great example. I could tell you when the pandemic hit us, a lot of organizations had to adjust completely their entire business model. And I can tell you for me in particular, my business model in a manufacturing space went from keeping people safe, but I also now have to keep people safe and healthy. And then on the same time, I have to continue to serve my customers. And I had the benefit of being in an essential business. So that put a lot of pressure on the group to rethink how we were doing things, establish protocols extremely fast throughout the organization to make sure that our people were safe, our products were safe to our customers, etc. And definitely tests you completely to the core. If you truly have a sound vision, it actually makes you either you validate that your vision is sound, because even with the diversion and the change of pace that you had, you still feel that we're heading in the right direction. And as I mentioned earlier, you're going to have these turns throughout your journey. But it's important that you maintain the calm, you listen to your people. One thing I heard you both say, and learning from others, I think it's also important to be able to learn from people that either you work for you or you work with, on areas that you're not maybe that you're blind to. And these blind spots are important to know, especially when you have these diversions of your vision based on external factors that come your way. So I would say it's a very critical thing. It might happen most of the times. I would say for you to think that a vision is going to have a straight line from where you're at today and you're going to get there is almost foolish. I think you should expect and anticipate changes along the way. However, that's going to make sure that your vision continues to get stronger and stronger as you go through these trials throughout the journey.
Okay. Terry, what are your thoughts?
I try to build my team's mindset as being champions of change. I want to embrace change. If you become someone that's good at dealing with change, now you don't have any fear of the unknown. this isn't going to be the last time a change is going to be needed. Pandemic that's, but how it comes up after immediately. I mean, I know in your industry, you all came up with a new technology that's going to make people think differently about how they do what they do. That happens all the time, but those that can adjust quickly are those that succeed.
Yeah, so what you're saying, and which is spot on, you have to be flexible. I'm going to switch gears just a little bit. So your mission, does it really change, or does the tactics change within your mission? Whichever one you want to take first.
Go ahead, Eric.
No, go.
Okay.
So if you build a mission that's high level enough that gets you to your ideal state, your tactics are going to change to get there, right?
Okay. So walk us through that. Walk us through that.
So I'll give you an example. For instance, if I'm going to engineer a cell phone today, I have a new company. I'm engineering a cell phone. Am I engineering a cell phone with a pull-out antenna at the top that flips open? I mean, can you imagine having a screen?
If you want to be non-cool, you will.
Exactly. I mean, can you imagine having a screen that's not touch screen? I mean, even today, I opened up an old laptop, and when my daughter was home, she went there, she wanted to move something, she started touching the screen. I said, that's not touch screen. Just, oh, come on, Dad. Really? Why wouldn't you have a touch screen? I know, Eric, I know you've heard this example too, but Eric, you have young girls. Have they seen a black and white TV before?
No, but however, I would stand corrected here. They are listening to vinyls, which I thought they were completely done. And they came back. There's some nostalgic behind the old stuff.
Okay.
But anyway, go ahead.
No,
but you're right.
You're absolutely right.
They haven't seen it.
You're absolutely right. But so to answer your question, Ron, I mean, there's always new innovations that are coming out, and you have to take advantage of it. When an innovation comes out, I mean, you think about it, and Eric, you hit on this a little bit before, and I want you to expand if you don't mind. But when an innovation comes out, it gives you a different way of looking at things. Maybe I'm going to accomplish a task a different way because it's a different mindset, because it's a different technology that I can use that makes it easier. I mean, when we think about taking notes right now, the first thing that people think of, especially if you ask the teenagers nowadays, they pull out their phone and they're going to find a way to take notes with their phone. They're not going to reach in their back pocket and pull out a notepad and a pencil and start writing things down, because that's not how they do things, right?
You said something earlier, and I want to talk a little bit about one of the best leaders that I've been around. I wouldn't mention his name, but I'll call him later, let him know that I'm talking about him. He is a natural introvert. And so what he would do, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit for him, but he would do when he would go out on stage to speak to all of us, he would literally 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and go into character, if you will. And he would really lay out his vision. You didn't know he was an introvert, right? So he had to learn. It didn't come natural to him, but he was a great leader. And so that's important to understand. People that could be introverts or are introverts, you have to be able to help them get on stage, if you will, and perform in the task that we're looking for. But I'm going to go back to what our original question was, and that's about the vision being, or the mission being the same, and then you're looking at the tactics change. I believe they do change. I believe that the tactics change, but your vision, if it's being best in class, you don't stop being best in class during a pandemic. And that's what you're saying, Eric, and I think that's what you're saying as well, Terry. The tactics may change, but it should lead us to our vision, right? So if you're throwing a curveball, it doesn't mean that you swing it the same way you would a fastball. And again, I'm not a baseball player, but I would think that would be the idea, that you would look at a pitch differently and you would really adjust your bat in a way that you're able to do some things different. If someone puts together a certain defense that doesn't match the offense or the play you're getting ready to perform, you have to adjust that. You call it audible. But at the end of the day, it's about scoring touchdowns. It's about hitting home runs or getting on base or whatever those things are. So let me just ask you this last question. I know we've talked a lot about a lot of subjects, and I know that we can actually talk about this thing for hours. What would each of you tell our audiences listening, if they're building a new organization or trying to build a high-performing team? What are some of the elements or what are some of the advice you would give them moving forward? I'll give it to you
Okay,
first.
I'll go first. So one of the most important things to me is making sure you have a team that values team dynamics.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is, like Eric mentioned before, you all don't have the same strengths. You
Mhm.
know, you have people around you that are strong where you're weak,
Mm.
and you have people that are motivated differently. It's because
Is that
good
a
leaders
bad thing?
also understand how to,
Is that a
I'm
bad
sorry.
thing to have someone strong in areas where you may be weak? Is that a bad thing?
No, that's a good thing. That's the important of that the team dynamics. That's important of having a high performance team. If
Mhm.
I'm weak somewhere and then a team member is strong there, as a team, we're strong there and other places together. So I think that's one of the most important aspects is doing some self-reflection and humbling yourself and understanding where you need to be strong and where you are strong and how you contribute to the team. If you have a bunch of people that have the exact same attributes, that means not only do they share the same strengths, but they share similar weaknesses, which makes the team weak in a certain area. So it's
Okay.
very important to have a strong team dynamic and people that value that dynamic.
Okay. Eric, any words of wisdom?
Yeah, I would tell you I have four points, and then I'll end up with a pro tip here at the end.
Okay.
I would say that my first point in this goes more for leaders. I would say you as a leader, you must serve your team members. You must serve the people that are working for you in this team. And what I mean by that is it's easy for me to always ask for something out of a team member or maybe put a deadline, put in a project for someone to complete. And that comes natural and easy for a leader because you're in charge of a team and you're trying to your point, drive these activities and tactics to get to the vision. I would flip it back and say, as you start, if you lay out a clear vision, as we started with, if you have good, clear objectives for your group, the roles are well defined,
Mm-hmm.
then you should be able to then sit back and start serving your team so that you can enable them to achieve those goals. And that's going to be a very important aspect. So to me, that's number one. Number
Right.
two, listening and learning, adapting. Your team members will teach you where you have opportunities to improve, and even for yourself as a leader.
Mhm.
One of the things I found very valuable. There has always been one or two individuals within my team that have not been afraid, and I've had the opportunity to open up enough for them to feel comfortable telling me areas where I may be failing at,
Mhm.
and having that transparent conversation where, hey, listen, are you okay with me telling you this? You're my boss, you're my manager. I say, sure. I'll open up, listen, and then you'll be able to really learn more about yourself, but also learn about how to keep people motivated, because you might be derailing your team if you don't watch for those pitfalls.
That's a
And
great.
uh, and I say that the number three, and it's an aspect of more of driving it down to the individual, is you as a leader need to develop certain habits. I think the habits are going to create certain disciplines that you want people
Okay.
to follow. And if you want to develop a culture of driving for success in a very self-driven culture, having some habits that are going to create the little movements of that needle over time, and having that compound effect at the end, and reaching the goal, I think is going to be important. So the developing habits like having maybe daily checks on certain things that you feel are very important, so that your team realizes they're important. Having one-on-ones with your team on a frequent basis, so that you could have an opportunity to engage at an individual level and not as a group, in establishing certain metrics and performance objectives that you're measuring constantly, so that you can see whether your team is driving to that goal. So I think those are a few of the areas that I think are important. And as I mentioned earlier, as a pro tip, I think one of the aspects that you must do as a leader is you have to have fun, and you have to celebrate, motivate, build up the group, and it's important that it cannot be always about the seriousness of the business. You have to have fun and enjoy yourself, and I think that's going to transcend into your team members as you start working towards that goal.
Outstanding. One of the things that that I always said with my teams and building teams is we're going to play to each other's strengths, and as a team, we'll cover each other's weaknesses. And I think what you guys are saying, what we're all saying, that you have to have metrics that's involved, right? You have to have those things. You have to have a constant communication. You have to have flexibility as a leader. You have to be able to pivot when it's necessary. You have to have truth tellers around you, and you have to listen. Be a good listener. To be quite honest, if you want a high-performing team, you got to be a great listener and understand how to communicate what you've heard back and forth. And if that translates into maybe saying no, but we need to be able to explain why there's a no and why there's a yes, and how do we get to a certain place. So we'll just end it there. Great time, guys. Really enjoyed it. Again, like I said earlier, we could talk about this stuff forever. Eric, thanks for joining us today. And Terry, thanks for joining us.
No
and audience, thank you guys for listening. This has been a great learning process for me, listening to these experts, and I'm sure that you will enjoy this as well.
Thanks, Ron. Thanks, Terry.
Thank you.